It's just a canvas panel, 8 by 8, universally primed, and I put on it the other day this acrylic iridescent copper. So it's going to mimic the look and feel of a copper plate, but not copper. Way more affordable, right? Okay, we can see that. Good enough. So I am going to use my proportion tool, and with my transparent oxide brown, I'm going to do some drawing. So I have a one-to-one piece of paper here. I'm just going to find some of the points on it that will allow me to see where our figure lives. So I'm going with a a diagonal 45-degree angle here. To show me from the center point to here approximately is where the top of the head lives. I think this copper color is going to work so good with her skin tones and her hair color. Shadow in this area right here. Painting on this acrylic is nice. It's really giving me a smooth texture. There's a little bit of, texture from the canvas, but the acrylic makes the oils, especially metallic acrylic, there's oils just glide right over top. Let me tell you what my palette is before I start mixing. I have titanium white. I have Old Holland yellow brown. That's this guy right here. And then I have, that is an Indian orange by Chavrin. I like this Indian orange. It's pretty transparent. That's why I tend to go with it. I'm also using the vermilion from Sennelier. And next I have by Old Holland some brown ochre. And I have my Rembrandt transparent oxide brown. That's right here. And next you'll see the Old Holland Mars black, which is a cool black. So I'm never really super duper concerned with matching the skin tone in the reference that I see. What I'm more concerned with is that the values are correct. So, although I do see I'm going to need some more warmer mid-tone, something here. A little of this orange involved. A little more red. That seems to be better. I use these synthetic brushes by Triquel, and I have a couple of ivories by Rosemary and Company. For the most part, that's what I've got. So these are the Legion, Triquel Legion, and then the Rosemary ivory. I'm going to put in some of the darks first. That way I can really judge the light values. So we're thinking like a director in a movie or a stage play. And we're thinking about lighting our scene. Oh, you know what I didn't mix? I didn't mix any greens. I need some greens. Guess I'll do. Okay. A little bit of this Old Holland yellow brown. Let's see, where can I put that so you can see it? Right about here, where I had some green with the black. And I don't want it to be like an, I don't know, I don't want too much yellow in it. I want a more cooler green, so that means more black like that.
can grab some more of this ash green. Put him over here. All right, so I've got this darker green up here. I'm just going to mix kind of a little area where we have a string of dark green, and then that'll work down into lighter versions of it. So here's a nice dark note of it. And then as we come down, of it, and I'll show you here. Just mixing a string right below. Now we have some greens on our palette to work with. Put in some of this darker green in the chair area. So I can see that playing off of the skin. Grab some of this right there. Add some yellow brown. This bit of white's dry, so it won't mix in with it. Warm that up a lot. Yeah, that's the right color, and we'll darken it up and get some of our lighter notes in on this shoulder. Just asking myself, is that too bright? And I feel like it might be. I'm gonna come in with some of this pink. Oh, it's good to know if your fingers are dirty. I darkened it. Okay. Comes up here and then goes into the chest. Now where I scumble it thinly, we get some of that copper showing through, which is helping to build up a mid-tone, like a half-tone. Oh, this yellow-brown. Yeah. So lots of yellowy orange notes right in there. That'll look really good against that cool light. Just feathering it out onto the back of the hand. So my next color will play nice with that stroke. Nice and light there. Right onto that thumb again. That bump of the thumb sits lower. I gotta bring that in here. And cut down. There it is. I'm gonna bring that all the way into the back of the arm here. A reddish brown coming into the back of the hand. And I'm going to use that little brush with some transparent oxide brown and red. that we mixed. Maybe a touch of red from the vermilion pile. I want to see that here. Comes in. A little shadow there. Starts working into those other fingers to the faraway hand. We get this kind of core shadow right through here and down. And that all just pushes down into the bottom edge of that hand. There is some lighter tone reflecting off the body up into this edge of the hand. Just make sure it's not too light. It can't be too light. Can't be anywhere as light as any of these light planes. And then it gets more of this sort of purpley tone down here. Like that. And that's disappearing in here. And there's a lost edge below that upper arm right into the shadow here. It's very subtle. And then we see this edge of red coming in here. Like that. Kind of goes up into this reflected edge. Right there. And let's put in the shadow below it so we can really see. I'm going to use just some straight transparent oxide brown right below here. Minding the shape of the hand. And I'm going to put that reflected edge back in on the wrist. Like that. There's that edge of the hand. And here is some shadow. And then we're going to see, so when we get these initial tones in, then we can go back and work on the transitions of all the areas. I want to put in this note of orange in this elbow bend right here. I like doing the background and the shadows with vertical strokes so that the light above the painting doesn't catch the marks. to be very careful with the values and the temperatures as we turn this form and roll this thigh under into that shadow below it. When I first started oil painting many years ago, I was so afraid to use black. Had so many people yelling at you about black, this, black, that. Don't use black, don't use black. Well, I love black. I use it a ton now. I think the problem was that too many students, when they're first learning to paint, rely on black to darken things too much. You have to look at it as its own color. It needs to be thought of as like a blue almost. That iridescent copper toning is really feeling like painting on copper. It gives me almost the same results. I've painted on copper before, so I can compare what that was like with this. A little bit of warmth on the ankle. Anytime you have a body part that's protruding outward slightly, it's going to push the blood to the surface more in those areas, so they tend to read as redder. Knuckles, knees, elbows, toes, ankles, all those bits. I'm going to leave everything there, let it dry overnight, and then I'm going to come back and work on top of dry flesh. So this is dry, and now we're working indirectly. So when I put down a brush stroke, I like to feather out a little bit of the edges so that it transitions into the next area. Playing these red tones against the green tones in the chair and the floor is going to set the colors up to have good harmony. Coming down onto this part of the hand. I'm scumbling in a little bit to let some of the copper, acrylic copper that I put as the tone of that canvas panel, treating it like a copper panel, although it's not a copper panel. We're going to let some of that iridescent shine through. There's a little bit of reflected light right there, but that was a little bit too much light value. So I'm just go right over it with some of the Indian orange, and that works. The warmth starts just about where the leg line starts here. Come straight down. That's where we start to really get into the shadows, where the form turns away from the light. Just kind of developing another color here from some of the piles that are in the shadows and the midtones. So we're working in the shadow area right through here, trying to find the right balance of warm to cool and the right value all at the same time. Yeah, one of the hardest things to do as a new figurative painter is to manage the saturation of your flesh tones. You don't want to go in with anything overly saturated, not at this point anyway. And then once it's dry, you can always glaze and warm an area up. It's so much easier to glaze the warmth in than try to take it out. So the front part of the fingers are catching some light, but not as light as the light areas in the other hands. Let me just brighten this up. right through here. We need that as a comparative note right there. Okay, so right through here. And then we get to the knuckles, which are warmer and darker. This section here. Let's bring that light section a little bit more to the right. Like that. We get a very warm orangey note right here as the knuckles go away from the fingers. And a very dark reddish brown note in there. This is the arm turning away into the shadow and is melting away from the rest of the body. And we have a very dark green coming in behind that, right in here. Almost black again, so we'll bring some of that really dark note right through here. Where we need this dark to be established to judge the value of this hand. Let's push this a little flatter. Like that. You want an elegant hand, not a club. Bring this knuckle up just a little bit right there. Tiny brush. I'm going to use this red. I want it to be really red. Right there. Between the fingers. So we're going to go right here. And then right about here. And then again down here. And we see a pinky. Need a little more value on the bottom edge of this ring finger. And down here below this edge of the pinky. And it gets cooler back there as it rolls around the rib cage and then disappears. There. Let's try to get the values to be a little closer together. I think that's doing it. What I do see happening, I need to use this dark background color to shape the knuckles right here. And then here. And then below that, it's more warm reddish brown. Like that. There's some subtle value shifts here below that hand. Let's get more of this shadow here below the top front hand. Just treat that area like an opal. And I want to soften this. It's a little too much. Right now we have a tiny face. It's a 3/4 view, so the center line's about right here. And this angle, slightly downwards. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the eye on the far side, right in here. I don't have any paint on here right now. I'm just thinking, I'm planning. So the eye's going to go here. I'm going to fill that in. I'm going to come across the glabella area, the space between the eyes, and kind of lightly place just a big shape right here for the eye on the left side. And then I want to guesstimate that the nose is going to go somewhere about here. I'm just going to put a shadow to denote the bottom plane of the nose. I've got like a value for kind of that mauve-y pink tone. So I feel like I'm looking at the space from the hairline to where that eye is going to go. It's going to live in this world, and I'm painting it with this lighter tone. And then we see a little bit of the eyelash line, and it tilts downward. It's not a horizontal or vertical. It's got a diagonal orientation right about there. Okay, I want to find the eyebrow. So I'm looking at the distance between the eyes, and I'm guessing that it's going to go there. A little darker note right in here. You need to maintain that distance between, keep not getting it dark enough, between the eyes. That cannot get too close together. Looking at the angle of the eyebrow. That's too cold for my liking. Let me warm that up. It's not too dark though, that's the thing. Right, I don't think I can go any closer to that faraway eye. I want to establish a bit more of that dark inside eye socket on this faraway eye here. It's really a good anchor for us. So I tiptoe into the value. I don't go in overly dark initially, build up to it. Gonna just find our way through this underplane of the nose. So we can play around with the mouth. It's gonna really help us see some of the expression that we're trying to get here, some of the emotion. So I've mixed a little bit more of our green. Same palette. This guy's been hanging in with us. I've got these 4 levels of green. They're really dark, and it gets slightly lighter as it comes down. These were all mixed with the Mars Black and the Old Holland Yellow Brown. And I pulled in a touch of Naples Yellow Pale. That's Winsor Newton. And I used that just to lighten up this guy down here. I didn't want to use white. I felt like it might make it a little too chalky. So I grabbed that. I'm just putting the local color down, and then I can come back and do some of the more detailed notes. I like to think of my paint marks almost like sculpting. I like this. I like the idea that it's kind of a circular direction for the eyes. Come in with a little bit of fabric note right here, just to round that off. It can get a little darker as it goes back this direction. A little note of fabric in here. Now this little bit right here, I don't really see much happening in that shadow, but let's imagine that we could see a little bit of the fabric coming down from below the foot. Pretty happy with the blanket now. Questioning the contrast right there. Let's turn it down as it comes out from there like that. And I want to connect right there a little bit. Maybe put a dark note right behind it. Yeah, I think I'm going to call it done. Hard to say, but yeah. Let me just get you a little closer view. Okay, here's a view from straight on, so you don't have any weird angle, camera angle. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Standing back now, I'm away from the easel, looking at it from a little bit of a distance. Small painting, 8 by 8, so I can't get too far away, right? I like the face. I like the body. I like the hand position, the leg positions. I like the values and the color temperatures through the flesh. I like the drape of the fabric. I think it works well with the way the light's hitting it, and it gets darker as it moves to the right. We see the chair, the way that it folds in a little bit like a wing-back chair does. I like the background. You can tell the light's coming from the left, getting darker as we move to the right. I feel like the composition's balanced. All right, yeah, so that's it. That's the finished piece.